Had to take 3 years to get the soil right? Hope you brought some, y'all bring some from Berkeley County since we've been shipping all ours over there. Better turn this phone off. This woman's words up now. She's gonna call me when they get that truck fixed, so I better turn this phone off. I don't expect a call. I don't know. I haven't even heard from him today. I hadn't heard from him today at all. That's unlike a Monday for him not to call me.
Mr. Chavez.
Okay. There it is. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. At this time, I will call to order the April 5th, 2021 meeting of Dorchester County Council. And we will start, as always, with the invocation and pledge of allegiance, and we'll ask Ms. Hallman to please lead us.
Thank you. Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you once again, thanking you for being so good to us. We thank you for allowing us to drive safely to the council meeting where the people here trust each member to do what is best for our county. We ask that you bless our first responders and as they do their job, saving lives and property. And we ask that you lead and guide all leaders in charge of this country. Protect our militaries from enemies, foreign and domestic, as they protect this land. And we ask, Heavenly Father, as we do what we're supposed to do here in this county, we ask that you be with our chairman and give him the strength and the grace required. As I come to a close, please wrap your arms around us and protect us when we depart this evening. Put your angels on the cars that we drive, that each of us will make it home to our destination. We ask this in your son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Thank you, Ms. Hallman. Next item on the agenda, request to address council. And we have one, Mr. Robbie Robbins. If you'd please come up and identify yourself, sir, please. Not that we don't know you, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robbie Robbins, my address is 814 North Cedar in Somerville. I come before y'all tonight with respect to the item that is on the agenda under the county administrator's time, zoning request number 822. I represent American Star Development, which is a company based out of Mount Pleasant, owned by Pierce Calvin and Billy Harvin. They are under contract to buy this acreage that is listed on that item from Mr. James McClendon, his family partnership, Bob White LLC. The request is a very simple request to you, which is to rezone this property to R1 from absence of control. And we have had discussions with some of you, haven't met with everyone yet, but we believe that the R1 zoning will lead to a far superior product than the absence of control district currently does. We have had, well, let me back up and say that this property is ideally situated almost about halfway between the Pine Hill Business Park down at 17A and 61, and then Winding Woods up here in St. George. We believe that this area is ripe for development now of this type. It will be roughly 5-10 minutes from the Walmart distribution center that is being built in Ridgeville, and that will allow the county to produce workers for the plant. Will also decrease traffic congestion, as you won't have people driving all over the low country looking for jobs. They'll be close to where they live. And so we have set about, since we got under contract with Mr. McClendon, to meet with our neighbors, the Edisto, Coosa, Natchez tribe. We've done that. We've had very good discussions with them. And I'm pleased to report to you tonight that the full tribal council has endorsed our development. So we would simply ask you tonight to take the first step and refer that to Mr. Chennis's Planning, Building, and Development Committee for a public hearing and an opportunity to go over this development in great detail and give you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. And before we do the next item, I believe Mr. Byers and Mr. Crosby are with us by telephone. Is that correct? Gentlemen, you there? They're on mute, okay.
Yes, sir.
There they are, okay. All righty, so we do have 7 of us present. Do appreciate both of them joining us for this meeting. So next item on the agenda is the adoption of minutes from the March 15th, 2021 County Council meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. So. And we have several proclamations, resolutions tonight. The first one is next on the agenda is the adoption of Proclamation 21-01, proclaiming April 2021 Donate Life Month in Dorchester County in honor of Mr. Ben Liebgott. Like I said, we have several. Thank you. Okay. I'll go ahead and take the motion, and we'll go ahead and get a second underway
Second.
there. We do have that as well. And tell you what, we'll jump in. And again, it is State of South Carolina, County of Dorchester, Proclamation number 21-01, proclaiming April 2021 Donate Life Month in honor of Mr. Ben Liebgott. Whereas one of the most meaningful gifts that a human being can bestow upon another is the gift of life through organ, eye, and tissue donation, and whereas more than 108,000 children and adults await life-saving transplants, of which more than 1,300 are in South Carolina, and whereas in 2020, more than 200 South Carolinians for the first time ever said yes to organ donation, saving the lives of 514 people awaiting their second chance at life. And whereas we are still losing an average of 20 lives every day due to the lack of organs available for transplantation, because every 10 minutes another name is added to the national transplant waiting list. And whereas according to national research conducted by Donate Life America, more than 90% of Americans support donation, and more than 54% of South Carolinians have registered at the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV. And whereas the decision to become an organ donor can save up to 8 lives, and tissue donation can enhance many more men, women, and children who depend on the generosity and sacrifice of others to receive a second chance at life. And whereas every person should support this life-saving effort by learning more about organ, eye, and tissue donation, making their families aware of their wishes, and registering online at www.donatelifesc.org, or when they receive or renew their South Carolina driver's license. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Dorchester County Council hereby proclaims April 2021 as Donate Life Month in honor of Mr. Ben Liebgott. Adopted this 5th day of April, 2021, signed by William R. Hearn Jr., Chairman, Dorchester County Council, Tracy L. Langley, Clerk to Council. We already have our motion and second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
everybody's got a driver's license, pull out your wallet. Look, pull out your driver's license. Look underneath that, well, I have a star on mine, you may not have a star. Look on there and see if you've got a red heart on your driver's license. If you don't, go to the DMV and you can get a red heart put on your driver's license. Just like that, it's that simple. All you gotta do is go and tell them to do it.
Excellent.
That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chennis. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, it is unanimous. And let's see, do we want to do the presentations one at a time here in this? Because we have both the presentation and believe we have some remarks as well on this. So we'll do them one at a time. I'm being told yes. So council, we will go down and, pardon me, looking for my notes here. We'll be presenting this to Miss Chris Kinsey, the mother of Mr. Liebgott. And then we'll be hearing from Mr. Joe Spitz, the Director of Information Technology for We Are Sharing Hope SC.
And I'm looking at Joe from up here and thinking, I see that mask, but do I recognize it?
Yes, one and the same. And all right, and we will come down, and folks, if you will come up, we'll meet you at the podium. You're allowed to speak to that, sir.
Robin, if you come out of the house, you have to wear a mask so I can see you from a distance and know what it is.
Robin was hiding in plain sight.
Right. So Mr. Chinnis has already stolen my thunder about the driver's license, so I have to come up with something else to talk about, but I do appreciate that. And I do want to thank the council for recognizing this important month for all of our donor heroes. As you mentioned, we had 214 organ donor families last year, able to save 514 lives through organ transplants. We had another 324 tissue donors as well. Each tissue donor is able to save at least 75 lives, or enhance 75 lives through their gifts. And the same with cornea transplants, so people are able to see once again do those cornea transplants. So again, it's a really important month for us to recognize our donor heroes, and again, spread the message of donation, and talk about the DMV and registering yourself to be a donor. It makes our job much easier in the worst time of someone's life. When they've lost a loved one, they have to make that decision. So if you made that decision already, that makes easy for us to work with the families and procure those gifts. So thank you on behalf of We Are Sharing Hope South Carolina and Donate Life South Carolina for this great moment.
Joe, thank you so much. Do appreciate you being here, and thanks again to Chris, Joe, and Robin for all being here, and thank you for coming up to St. George. And again, this is just a very important issue, and we're grateful to be a part of it this month. So thank you
so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Okay, and tell you what, we've also been presented a flag, and thank you so much. I'll cover my face right now, but again, we will fly this very proudly. Thank you so much. Do appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda is adoption of Proclamation 21-02, proclaiming April 2021 Fair Housing Month. And once again, State of South Carolina, County of Dorchester, proclamation number 21-02, proclaiming April 2021 Fair Housing Month. Whereas Dorchester County desires that all its citizens be afforded the opportunity to attain a decent, safe, and sound living environment, and whereas Dorchester County rejects discrimination on the basis of race, religion, color, sex, national origin, disability, and/or familial status in the sale, rental, or provision of other housing services, and whereas the state of South Carolina enacted the South Carolina Fair Housing Law in 1989, and whereas April is recognized nationally as Fair Housing Month, now therefore be it resolved that Dorchester County hereby proclaims April 2021 as Fair Housing Month. Adopted this 5th day of April 2021, again signed by William R. Hearn Jr., Chairman, Dorchester County Council, and Tracy L. Langley, Clerk to Council. And do I hear a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous. And are we presenting this one?
Mr. Chairman and council will make sure that that item is received by the BCD cog.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ward. Okay.
Also, I guess it would bear mentioning that this is a eligibility requirement for the Community Development Block Grant Program.
Thank you, sir. The next item on the agenda, easier for me to say, is the adoption of Resolution 21-04, a resolution to honor and recognize Ms. Lula Mae Stewart Matthews on her 100th birthday. And Ms. Hallman, you'll have the honors on this one.
Yes, thank you.
It's all yours.
Okay. A resolution to honor and recognize Lula Mae Stewart Matthew on her 100th birthday. Whereas Lula Mae Stewart Matthews celebrate her 100th birthday on March the 12th, 2021. And whereas Miss Matthews was born in Reedsville, South Carolina on March 12, 1921, the last remaining of 5 children born to the late Johnny Stewart and the late Lily Fox Stewart. And whereas Miss Matthews joined the late James B. Matthews in holy matrimony, and the couple's blessed union produced 5 children, John Matthews and the late Miriam Matthews and the late Lily Flemings and the late Dorothy Kersey and Jeanette Young. And whereas Miss Matthews is a woman of great faith who came to know Christ as a child. She loved her church family at St. Matthew's Baptist Church in Reedsville, where she joined at an early age. Miss Matthews served as a member of the chorus and on the kitchen committee. And whereas Miss Matthews enjoyed serving the elderly and those less fortunate, she faithfully visited the residents of St. George Healthcare Center as well as the sick and homebound members of her church congregation. And whereas Miss Matthews is known for her delicious fried chicken and sweet potato pie, friends and family look forward to those prized delicacies, and she graciously opened her home each Sunday to her church family and members of the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Dorchester County Council is proud to honor this special lady on the celebration of her 100th birthday and joins her family and friends in congratulating her on reaching this extraordinary milestone. Be it further resolved that upon adoption of this resolution, the original shall be presented to Ms. Lula Mae Stewart Matthews and a copy filed in the permanent record of Dorchester County, South Carolina. Adopted this 5th day of April 2021, Moving Council, Harriet A. Hallman, County Council District 1, by Williams R. Hearns Junior Chairman, Dorchester County Council. Attest Tracy L. Langley, Clerk of Council.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
So we have a motion. How about a
Second.
second? We have a second? Oops, okay.
So moved.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Holman. We'll give you that. Mr. Bailey, how about a second? Sir, he does. So we have a motion and a second. Thank you very much. Any discussion?
100 years old.
Okay, I don't know. I think that proclamation resolution said it all. I enjoy the part about the fried chicken. Mr. Ward was very eloquent when he stated that too, sir. But any other?
But Mr. Chairman, it's an honor to reach the age of 100. And Ms. Matthews has done some great things. She's been a Christian at an early age. She has done great work in the community. And we are just so thankful that she was here in Reedsville doing all these great things. And we really appreciate her and all the work that she's done all these years.
Well, thank you, Ms. Holman, and thank you for bringing this one forward. And I think, let's see, we have not taken this to a vote yet. And please, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous. Thank you very much. And next on the agenda is approval of extension of the county attorney employment contract. And
Chairman,
Mr. Bailey,
I would move the county council extend the county attorney's employment contract for a period of 4 years to end July the 1st, 2025, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Tennis.
before we get a second on that, I'd like to amend this motion, if I can, based on the conversation that I think we had had previously.
Go ahead, Mr.
So,
Tennis.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to amend this motion to, for the county attorney contract to be extended effective July 1, 2021 through July 1, 2023, which was originally, we did 2-year approval of extensions in 2-year increments until, and actually it was, it was the county attorneys reminding us that it was Mr. Byers that actually was the one that said go to 4 years. So I would like to amend this to a 2-year term extension, if I might.
Okay, and just kind of jumping through the Roberts Rules hoops here, we did not get a second. Okay, all right. So let's do this. Let's restack this. Back to the original motion, we do need a second in order to get an amendment.
Mr. Chairman, may I second the original motion?
Yes, ma'am. So we do have a second, and at this time, the amendment would be in order. So we now have an amendment, and we would need a second on the amendment, if I'm doing that correctly. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second regarding the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment?
Yes, sir, I have a question.
Sir?
I'm looking at a previous contract on his position as county attorney. Ms. Chenez, are you saying we give him a 2-year term, an additional 2 years? Or are you just saying 2 years? Are you just saying 2 years?
This extension is actually a 2-year extension instead of a 4-year extension. Prior to the previous extension of 4 years, we did 2-year extensions. And then Mr. Byers had asked, quite honestly, Jay, you're on the phone, but the good question was, why are we doing this? And we ended up doing a 4-year term. In a discussion we had earlier, I'm amending it back to the 2-year term.
I understand. Would you have any problem with us giving him a two-year terms? I'm looking at what we done before, council done before. I think you were chairman at that time.
We had,
Give him a two-year terms.
I'm not sure that,
I take that back. Jenna, I apologize. If I can say that, I'm sorry.
okay,
I'm
thank
reading
you.
it wrong. I do apologize.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Almond?
since we have 2 different years that's been second, do we need to take this back into a session and speak amongst the councilmen and then come up with a number that is agreeable and bring it back to the floor?
Well, it is contractual in nature. I think it would be germane to take it into executive session, although one of the members probably would need to step out as we're already. Why, yes, sir, as a matter of fact, but we've already put you on the spot enough as it is. But now, does council want to meet and discuss this now? Do you want to add it to executive session and bring it back out?
Mr. Chairman, again, from my standpoint, if there's a motion and a second to amend to a 2-year term.
Yes.
If there's not 4 votes, then that motion ultimately fails. So I guess from my standpoint, I don't know. I mean, I don't mind to go around and talk about it. But I'm, if the motion fails, the motion fails. I was going back to what had been done prior to the previous one is the only thing I had done. So.
Yes, sir. And I will say this, Mr. Chennis, Mr. Byers, and myself did meet with Mr. Frampton, and it was discussed and it was noted that the prior contract before the previous one and all the years prior to that had been a series of 2-year contracts. That's where this is coming from. I'll tell you what, if, yes, sir.
I agree with Mr. Chennis. I don't think we need to take this in executive session.
Okay.
I believe in the wholeheartedness, everybody's heart has made up their mind what they want to do and is willing to do, and I just want to move on with the vote, sir.
All right, if no one objects, since we have 2 on the phone, and I hope they're with us and listening in, what I can do is this. It's probably the easiest way to do is just with regard to the amendment. We're hearing the amendment this time. Mr. Friddle, yes or no to the amendment? Do you vote in favor of the amendment? Meaning, do you vote in favor of 2 years as amended?
Yeah, look, I'll vote for the 2 years. I'm not saying he's not gonna be here for 4 years, but if we initially had as a 2-year agreement all this time, I don't foresee a 2-year and a 2-year being an issue. It's just dealing in contract situations that I've been in before. It's good to have a shorter term, but in the same token, there's no problem. I don't foresee a problem going with 2 and then getting another 2 after that. I mean.
Okay. Mr. Chennis?
Yes to the amendment.
I did see that coming, sir. Okay. We'll jump to the phone there, Mr. Byers. Can you hear me?
Aye.
Okay, and to the 2 years. So okay, all right. Mr. Crosby?
Yes, sir, I can hear you, and yes to the amendment.
Okay, and for the record, if Ms. Holman and Mr. Bailey, that I'm counting to 4 right now on this, and so, but again, would that be a no and a no? Is that
A no for
correct?
me, sir.
No,
Yes.
don't, okay, all right.
4. And now, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Friddle, I need to understand his motion, his vote a little bit more. Is he 4 years or is he 2 years?
Let's bring it back to 2 correctly. Bring it back to 2 if I.
Yes, ma'am. And again, just, I can say this in speaking to me on this as well. I will support the 2 years, and understanding what Mr. Friddle said as well, is that in no way means that it is just 2 years and ending in 2 years. We certainly have the right to extend this out another 2 years beyond that, and certainly, see that as a distinct possibility from my perspective, speaking for me and my 1 vote. So,
Mr.
any other?
Chairman, we've extended it 3 times, is that correct? 8 years total? At least?
If you go back 32 years.
Yeah.
It's been extended about 15 times, but permanent employment, yes, that is correct.
Thank you, sir. Okay. And, all right, any other discussion? All right, and again, this would be as to, well, heck, you know, when I said that, as if we've voted, we'll record the vote this way, we'll show 5 in favor of the amendment, 2 opposed. The amendment overrides the main motion.
No, sir,
No,
you
it
still
does
need the
not.
main motion.
Thank you. So we've amended it, so we will vote for the motion as amended. Thank you. All right, so now we're to the main motion as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous. All righty. Mr. Frampton?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank you all very much.
And Mr. Frampton, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, next, correspondence, Mr. Ward, on that.
Mr. Chairman and council, we tried to deliver those items as they were received. I will just remind council that this is the season where we are making requests to our members of Congress, and those are in progress.
Thank you, Mr. Ward, and was going to invite our guests to have a good night, but they took that opportunity, and I'm glad that they did. So next, under guest time, we have Mr. Daniel T. Prentice, Dorchester County Administrator / CFO.
Good evening. So I have an occasion this evening to share with you something other than the budget report, and that would be an update on the American Rescue Plan Act that was signed by the President earlier last month on March 10th. So I wanted to go through this and what we're seeing so far. I'll share with you some updates about what some of the initial funding priorities that we've looked at may be for the county, and also talk a little bit about what some of the allowable uses of the funds, as we know so far, are going to be. So, as I mentioned, the President signed this act on March 10th of this year. It's known as the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This is going to impact political subdivisions throughout the United States, but to counties, most notably, $65.1 billion is being funneled down in the form of direct stimulus money. So that allocation is based on population. There's some different allocations for different political subdivisions based on CDBG formulas and things like that. But as far as Dorchester County is concerned, we're slated to receive $31,857,471. So that's a direct stimulus payment from the federal government, and it's going to be split into 2 tranches. As we understand it right now, that first tranche will be received within 60 days of signing of the act, and then the second tranche of the remaining $15 million and some odd dollars would be received no earlier than 12 months after the first payment. So we can anticipate very soon to receive $15,928,000, and that would be deposited into a restricted account of Dorchester County to be used under the terms of the act. So as far as we're concerned at this point in time, there's not really any reporting guidelines or any formal guidance on how the funds are to be administered other than the very brief information that we've received to date. We're waiting on further guidance from U.S. Treasury on how those reporting requirements will be administered. And what I'll share as a nexus to this, the CARES Act existed under the prior administration and allowed us to receive funds through subrecipient programs through the state of South Carolina. The state contracted with a firm, I think it was called Guidehouse, and essentially used that software to allow us to submit requests, to provide backup documentation, and to ensure that the state, as the recipient of those funds, had adequate documentation on hand of the cost that they covered. So we're still waiting on that information to come down to ensure that we can comply, but instead of going through the state, we're going to have to be ensuring that compliance at the local level. We do have a deadline to expend the funds. All funds would have to be expended prior to December 31st of 2024. As I mentioned about the first payment 60 days after enactment. And then we understand at this point in time that we're going to have to submit a formal statement of intent to U.S. Treasury outlining how we intend, broadly speaking, to administer the use of the funds and ensure that that funding will be administered in compliance with whatever guidelines are set forth and things of that nature. We anticipate receiving a brief on what that would need to look like in the weeks ahead. So briefly, the categories for how the funds can be used, 4 major categories. The first is to respond or mitigate the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19 or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, or aids to industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. And we see that as essentially guidance saying, kind of like we had with the CARES Act, there has to be some nexus to the negative impact from COVID-19. So whether that's providing measures that could provide them with PPE and, measures where they could reopen safely to the public or to their industry, or to be able to replenish the coffers, where revenues or such were impacted. Provide government services to the extent of the reduction of revenue due to the public health emergency, and I've outlined some of those things to share with you here in a moment. And so that would be for us as a political subdivision where we've experienced revenue loss due to COVID-19. We could replenish those revenues starting January of 2020, where the revenue loss was seen, up through the conclusion of the funding period of December 31st of 2024. We can make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. That one is very broad, and we are still looking into some of the areas of concern of that to ensure that it'll be administered properly, and I have some more information for you there. And then we can also transfer the funds to private and nonprofit organizations, a public benefit corporation involved in the transportation of passengers or cargo, or special purpose unit, special purpose district or something like that of state or local government. We can also provide premium pay to eligible first responders in the amount of up to an additional $13 per hour, not to exceed $25,000 per year per eligible worker. And they would have to have some nexus to responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. One thing that I'll note there is that there is a prohibition that was very expressly outlined, and we cannot use those funds to pay for the retirement portion, the pension portion of the pay. So the local entity would still be responsible for both the employee and employer share, which in our case is 9 plus 18% of pay. So that, while it looks good on paper, there is still a liability that would exist there to the local government entity. So I say that with caution. It's not a 100% covered cost that we would have to consider if we were looking at that. So those are the eligible uses. The one little thing that I wanted to go over before I take any questions is what we have looked at as far as priorities so far. We do have several expenses that we've incurred that remain unreimbursed. We have a FEMA claim that's outstanding. We received right at $972,000 last year through the CARES Act, but we have another $936,000 that was ineligible for CARES that was submitted to FEMA. So if we wanted to forego that claim and reimburse ourselves at the 100% amount, we could push that $936,000 into the disaster fund of the county, and that would ensure that we replenished what we had expended in response to COVID already. We also have a shortfall in the actual cost reimbursed under CARES of $472,000. So that $972 that we received, there was another $472,000 that was submitted that was not reimbursed. And then the other portion of it is $173,000 that we've incurred since the conclusion of the CARES eligibility period of November 15th of last year. And so, things that we've incurred from November 15th to date that we would consider as eligible to reimburse, again, to replenish the disaster fund. So all in there, just with those items, you're looking at close to $1.6 million just to reimburse the disaster fund and make it whole. We're also forecasting our needs for the next year to be able to continue to respond to COVID, whether it be providing PPE to first responders, buying things for, future vaccination clinic activation, things of that nature that are somewhat unknown at this point. So we had earmarked $1 million. We also were looking at the possibility, and Mr. Formisano could surely provide some more information on this, of buying a mobile command post. We purchased a bus, as you know, last year to be able to facilitate some response, which has been used for some activities related to the courts, to be able to promote social distancing and get people out of the building. And this would be something that would allow us to provide a myriad of different responses, including providing mobile communications in response and other disasters outside of COVID, but would allow us to directly address any field support related to COVID in the near term. Again, with all of the administrative work that's required for this, we're seeking to be able to bring in a one-year position, kind of a federal programs liaison, to help us, have a subject matter expert that's directly involved in this on a daily basis. So that's under $60,000 there just to administer the $31 million fund, especially in the first year as we set our priorities. Total of $1.7 million in revenue shortfalls that we've experienced, and you can see that broken down within the council agenda item. But for fiscal year 20, we experienced $375,000 in revenue shortfall split between hospitality tax, the 1% Uber local assessment fee that we collect off of Uber trips that start in Dorchester County, magistrates revenue, and master and equity revenue. That surged up to $923,000 in fiscal '21, and then we're estimating it to be $439,000 in fiscal '22. So we would be able to reimburse ourselves, and ultimately that would serve to go back to general fund balance and/or hospitality tax fund balance in this case, where revenues were lost. As I mentioned, there's water and sewer and broadband infrastructure needs as well. We'd be able to provide a local match for the Winding Woods Reach in the amount of $3 million with this funding. We've also engaged in conversations with private firms, both that provide consulting services and local firms that provide telecommunications, about the ability to provide broadband internet, gigabit internet, to underserved and unserved areas of the county. And at this point in time, we believe that between $3 and $5 million in terms of matching funds would allow us to serve broadband to the majority of the unserved and underserved areas of the community. So we've done some GIS mapping overlays, pulling data down from the FCC and from the state office, I think it's state ORS, and putting those things together to understand where we have rooftops, E911 addressing points, and where internet is not available as it's reported out by those agencies, to try to figure out where the gaps are. And so that would be another area that we could consider. So all in, those things that I just mentioned would all fit under the first year's $15 million. And there's some other notes in there as far as other priorities that we may consider. But I wanted to put that in front of you to outline some of the conversations we've had so far, and then also take any questions or see if there's other priorities that we should be considering as we move forward with drafting the formal response with this plan whenever we receive the funds. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Prentice, just to recap, you said 2 tranches and how much in each?
$15,928,000 in each tranche.
Thank you, sir.
So anticipate receiving the first within the next, I would say, 30 to 45 days now. And the second, at least a full year after.
Any other questions or comments?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hearn, Mr. Hearn,
Yes, sir. Mr. Byers?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, this is Jay.
No, you're good, sir.
Yeah, and Daniel, I've got questions about this, and some of these I'll catch up with you later. I know a lot of us probably have talked about this. But I really kind of want to know what we're planning on doing with this, but also, candidly speaking, I'm not necessarily interested in spending $31 million just to spend it just because it's there to spend. We're printing money at the federal level that my kids and grandkids are going to be paying back, and I know that that's talking ad nauseum for a lot of us. But I'm seeing 7.6, almost 7.7 million of reasonably legitimate expenditures, and then going into the future, I'm not sure that we have a list of things that we're wanting to spend those on. So I'd like to see. Here's what I don't want. I don't want this to become just a Christmas shopping list of things that we just want to go buy just to spend federal money, candidly speaking. I don't know what our options are with that, but that's a concern that I do have, and I just want to be able to talk about that a little bit later. So, Daniel, I'll catch up with you about some of that a little bit more when I can do that in person, but I appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, sir. And by all means, this is just an initial brief. Anything that we intend to do would be brought back to council for approval, and we would set up a special revenue fund to administer these funds as we move forward. Just wanted to get the information in front of you while it was fresh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, sir. All right, and before...
Mr. Hearn, if it would be possible, I'm not sure what happened to the sound, but y'all speakers for the feedback is going very, very low, and I've got my speakers on Teams turned up to 100%.
All right, we'll check on that right now, Mr. Crosby. And
Thank you.
While that's happening, before we hand it over to Mr. Ward, I'd like to welcome a special guest we have this evening, and she has her head down going, uh-oh, that's me. But I'd like to introduce and welcome Ms. Caitlin McKenzie, who is visiting from Fayetteville, Georgia, where she attends Whitewater High School. And Caitlin is currently in the 10th grade. Her plans after she graduates from high school are to attend Emory University and become a registered nurse. And she is Ms. Holman's granddaughter. So You want to wave? There you go. Thank you for being here tonight, and sorry to do that to you, but somebody's very proud of you and wanted me to point you out in the crowd. But welcome, and thanks for being here. Is this spring break for you? I'm sorry you're spending spring break at county council meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bailey.
Mr. Chennis would be happy to know she's the one who brought the cake in.
That was
She told me.
good choice.
Well, Caitlin, thank you for that. And next, County Administrator's time, Mr. Jason Ward.
Mr. Chairman and Council, just before going through these items, just kind of wanted to assure Council, each year you provide priorities in terms of things you want to have accomplished in the budget, as well as your strategic plan and the congressional program priorities. So our guidance is to follow those items, and that's how we've gone about formulating this list. And we'll make sure that whatever we bring back to you is reflective of Council's priorities in terms of the American Rescue Plan funding. So,
Thank you.
all right. In terms of the items I have for your consideration, the first item is first reading and referral to the Planning, Development, and Building Committee for a public hearing and recommendation regarding rezoning request number 822 by Bob White Ridge LLC, James H. McClendon, to rezone 445 acres located on Indigo Road near Ridgeville, South Carolina, TMS number 118000067, from absence of control district AC to single-family residential district R1. I will ask that you give first reading and that you refer this matter to the Planning, Development, and Building Committee for a public hearing and further consideration and a recommendation to council.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, as
Chennis.
Robbie breathes in and holds his breath here first. A couple things here in regards to this. If you read your packet, you'll note that the Planning Commission actually recommended denial, and that was, I'm not even sure what happened there. I do know what happened there, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense in any case. But to be clear, Planning Commission is advisory only in this case. So the staff also recommends denial, and I want to try to figure out as I look down here and on the phone here to ask how many people voted in this current council for the current comprehensive plan? And that's somewhat rhetorical.
Yeah.
As I say that.
Yes.
I think Mr. Friddle is the only one that did not. Ms. Hallman, did you vote for, was Ms. Hallman when we passed the comprehensive plan?
I think it was before my time.
Okay, you may get a pass on this one. So one of the challenges in the denial in this is because of the comprehensive plan. When I looked at this, and I've had some conversations about this, this is a rezoning request, to be very clear, and this is not just, when I make this statement, this is not about this specific item, but about everything that we look at and rezone. With each zoning designation, we allow a group of uses, and it's not just what we think it is, and that's something that's very important for us to consider. If I say R1, and the developer says, but I'm going to put half-acre lots or third-acre lots or whatever in there, and we say, okay, when we give him R1, he's not bound to that statement that he made to us. So it's very important for me to look at this from a rezoning request standpoint and say, does it fit our comprehensive plan? I can tell you today it probably doesn't. But can our comprehensive plan be amended to look at making this a fit because of some of the things that Robbie has stated? And I would agree, I would say, yeah, probably can. I think one of the important things, and actually I'm going to sit down and talk to Robbie this week. I think one of the important things, and the reason why I'm going into this is a development agreement prior to a rezoning is probably critical to us that says we agree that this is what we're going to do here within your R1 zoning, not just, hey, we're going to R1 zone this and you can do whatever you want to, because that really becomes the challenge. General commercial and things like that, if we rezone something general commercial, it doesn't just mean that that's because, Joe wants to do this thing in here, this general commercial. That rezones that permanently, and that means that that's always general commercial. Again, picking on Robbie here, we've got a golf cart business out there that if we rezone to general commercial, they would not be able to operate because the buffers that are required in general commercial would basically eliminate their building. So there's no way to put a buffer on that lot and allow them to have a general commercial. So one of the things in here, and I'm going to vote to approve this going into first reading, obviously, but we always do that. Interestingly enough, in speaking with former chairman of Charleston County Council, Charleston County actually puts these items in committee prior to coming to full council. The term he used is our first reading is ceremonial, and I think it always has been. Usually there's not even comments on it, but because he kind of presented that to me, that they put it in committee to have these discussions up front, I thought, maybe everybody ought to understand that. And from the standpoint of my newest committee members, the understanding is R1 is a zoning that when we give it that, they get to do whatever they want to with that zoning. Whatever we call it, that's free for them to do. That becomes a by right zoning. In this case, R1 allows clusters, which are 4,000 square foot lots. The developer says he didn't want to do that, but once we give them that, the ability for us to limit that size lot becomes almost negligible unless we want to engage our attorneys to represent us in a court case as we get sued over something like that. Bigger situation, it's not, I don't know why Mr. Hearn picked on me, kind of like Mr. Bailey picked on me, and I think Mr. Byers picked on me, and they keep putting me back on planning and zoning, and gosh, you probably regret that a whole lot by now, because I spent far too much time reading our zoning ordinances and trying to understand it, because it ain't easy. But there's a big consideration here, and I don't take any of this stuff lightly. This is a future look, and keeping our fingers crossed and hoping people do what we want them to do. I think there's a real simple opportunity here, and I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Friddle.
Personally, going into this, and I met with Mr. Robbins too, personally, I suggest that we consider on rezoning opportunities going forward, a development agreement is in hand for the developments for a specific number of houses. So we got a development agreement in place. This will ensure both parties agree to specific standards and conditions will govern the development of the property. I think that's something that we need to look at doing, adopting on larger tracts. I really liked what they've done with the property, what they're wanting to do, but we need to protect ourselves going forward in the future.
Developers always tell us that they're going to do exactly what they're going to do, right? They don't ever.
Dealing with contractors my entire career, I think this would be a good move.
Thank you, Mr. Friddle. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bailey.
I heard Mr. Chenna say I put him as chairman of planning and zoning. And for two reasons I did that. Because I really believe he knows what he's talking about and what he's doing. And second reason, I just love to hear him talk.
Well
That's
said,
what I
Mr.
thought you were going
Bailey.
to say first.
Well said, Mr. Bailey. Let it never be said that David Chennas takes planning issues lightly. Never, ever. So, all right. Any other comments? Okay, we do have a motion. and a
Mr.
second.
Chairman.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I mean, and I appreciate what Mr. Chennis had to say. I didn't hear anything Robbie had to say earlier. The audio completely went out, and he might have been speaking about this. It's my intention right now to vote no because staff's saying no. With a proper PD in hand or a DA and a development agreement in hand, that'll be a different story potentially. I want to see, but the days of trusting that a developer is going to do what they say they're going to do, no, sir. So I'm not supporting doing anything out there until we get some sort of development agreement in hand that's clearly laying out what they're going to do that they're committed to. So I appreciate David saying that, and maybe we do need to change, because I don't understand why we bring it up for first reading and then refer it over to the committee. I mean, it is kind of ceremonial. Perhaps we need to change how that looks so that we can clean this up a little bit. But in the meantime, right now, without something in hand that clearly lays out what they're going to do and what they're going to commit to so that we can see exactly what they're going to do and hold them to it, I'm not going to be supporting anything on this one at this point. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Anything else? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm going to hold a nay right now.
Okay. So if I'm hearing correctly, 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Okay, and Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chairman and Council, the next item I have for your consideration is a request for approval to use personnel savings in the Public Works Department to purchase roll-off containers, and I will ask that you authorize the transfer of up to $25,000 in personnel savings to capital to purchase 4 roll-off containers as recommended by the Public Works Director.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous. Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chairman and Council, the next item I have for your consideration is a request for approval of the Safety Committee Charter, and I'm asking that you approve this charter. It outlines the duties and responsibilities of the Safety Committee, as well as a Vehicle Accident Review Board for the county at large, a separate Vehicle Accident Review Board for the Sheriff's Office and Detention, and associated subcommittees. Ask for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, it is unanimous. Mr. Ward?
Next item I have for your consideration is a request for approval to appropriate $129,000 in available hospitality tax fund balance for parks and recreation operations, equipment, and personnel. This will provide associated funding for the grand opening of both the Davis Bailey and Ashley River Parks. It'll provide staffing and also other related items. As outlined in your packet, ask for your approval.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman and Council, the final item I have for your consideration is a proposed resolution. This resolution would enable the Parks and Recreation Department to post and enforce agency rules and regulations. There was in your packet a recommendation to prolong this process for another 2 weeks, but unless there is concern based upon council's opportunity to review, I'll ask for your approval tonight. So my request is that you approve the enforcement and posting of said agency rules and regulations as recommended.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bailey?
and this is my fault, but I'm going to say this. Mr. Ward, would it be any way possible we could adjourn debate on this for the next meeting? I just really got this today, and it's a little bit of my fault. I've been out of town, but I like to go through this because I know we're going to be getting questions. That's just, this is my request. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, based upon Councilman Bailey's request, be my recommendation that we add this to the next county council meeting agenda, which will be the 19th of April. Will give council additional time for review.
Is that acceptable, Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, I want you to know I thank the world of Eric. He's doing a great job. I applaud him all the time, and I appreciate him coming to our Rotary Club and speaking. He did a great job. I'd like to go through this because local people are going to say, why y'all doing it? Why are you doing this? That's just my thought.
No problem, Mr. Bailey. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
thank you. All right, Mr. Ward, anything else?
Nothing further, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda, appointments to boards and commissions. And there are several, looks like a couple of considerations here. The first would be to consider appointing Mr. John, is it Therms? Thank you, to Dorchester County Conservation Commission.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Next consideration would be to appoint Mr. Mike Kimmerlin to the Dorchester County Rivers and Waterways Commission. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
And a second. And a second. Thank you, Mr. Friddle. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous. Next, County Attorney's time. Mr. Frampton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council. I'd request executive session with county council to discuss 2 contractual matters, the first being the Oak Brook Athletic Complex Memorandum of Understanding, and the second contractual matter being 500 North Main Street redevelopment.
Okay. Do you hear a motion?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. And we are in executive session. Those that are going to call tonight, please drive carefully. And we've left you plenty of time to get home safely to watch the basketball game. So have a good night. All right. Let's see. I can count to 5. Are we good with Mr. Myers and Mr. Crosby?
Yeah. No, if she owns the land, give me a call.
It's chewing.
Lynette was 14.
So he's chewing us.
502 houses.
Okay, Mr. Byers, or no? See, he's not joining us? Okay,
Anyway, she came out and started.
Yeah, we're good.
I said,
okay.
Daddy, I didn't know. I could live like this. Holes in the floor and walls.
All right. Mr. Frampton, would you please bring us out of executive session?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Executive session, council discussed the previously announced 2 contractual items, but no action was taken.
Thank you, sir. Do I have any motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bailey?
I would move that county council authorize a notification to CHS Battery that its land use agreement with Dorchester County is terminated.
Okay. Any discussion?
Do I have a second?
All right.
Give me a second.
Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
And it could be we are 6 in favor, 1 absent, but it is, okay. Any other motions, Ms. Hallman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
All righty, and
Great.
do I have a second? All right, these basketball fans are hard to come by here tonight, all right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And hearing none opposed,
No.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.